Hey everyone, so this is a call. And what I want to talk about in this video is I want to talk about emotional clearing using the breath. This is kind of an interesting topic that I think is alluded to in a lot of books, and it's generally not explained very well. So hopefully I can shed some light on this subject. But before I get into that, I also wanted to kind of let you know that I've about some of the work I do. So I teach Kundalini Yoga, I also teach Tantra. And I also, one of the big projects I've been working on for quite some time is helping individuals reconnect to their authentic sexual expression. In other words, I offer sexual energy coaching, helping individuals sort of find their sovereignty, which I think is really important because there's so many different influences, so many ways in which we get kind of jerked around regarding our sexual energy. So anyway, if you're interested in some sexual energy coaching, either as a video format or as 6-week in-person coaching, if you're here in Chicago, or if you are available to meet online, that's all available. You can check out the link down below. So going into this video, so the breathing that I'm kind of talking about here, that I'm going to teach in this video in a couple minutes here, is segmented breathing, which to me is the most effective breath in order to sort of liberate any sort of tensions. And I'll get into that in a minute why. So first off, what's the issue? The issue is something really fundamental that many of us do not understand, which is that the physical body holds tensions. Those tensions, oftentimes, how do we generally address those tensions? And not to say that tensions aren't from, let's say, repetitive use or, how you sleep and things like that. All that is true. However, a lot of the tensions we actually hold in our body are actually emotional in nature. So what I want to do is I want to reframe what emotion is. And what I mean by emotion is energy in motion. So when energy is not in motion, meaning it becomes stuck, attention is held, attention is created. So why, how do I express this? So this tension which is held in the body essentially is frozen energy. Now, why this happens has to do with you. It has to do with me, it has to do with how we are patterned individuals. Every one of us has patterns. None of us is unique in that regard. We have patterns that we do on a repetitive basis. Our way of being, in a lot of ways, cultivates certain tensions. However, that being said, it is my belief that we are all heading towards, in this life, from point A to point B, from birth to death, is we all have the opportunity to be free of these tensions. We all have the opportunity to do that. And the only thing really getting in the way are these patterns which are connected to our ego states, essentially. So these ego states are, essentially, let's say, what freezes the emotion in place is belief. What also freezes the emotion in place is a lack of trust or a lack of faith. And what I mean by lack of trust and faith really has to do with, I'll use a really good example of money. So I basically have chosen a particular life path that was not concerned with making money. My concern was always spiritual. It's what motivated me. So in turn, I had to suffer to some degree by making that choice. I had to say, hey, I'm going to focus on the spiritual stuff. I'm going to focus on how I can help people. And I had to make up my own path as I went along. And yes, I learned from different teachers and different books and resources, etc. But I was assembling and creating my own career, which required that I let go of the desire to earn money. So I had to have faith that the universe was going to take care of me. That's a very difficult thing. And so when I did not have faith, I was stuck in fear. And so where did that fear, in my particular case, get held? My pelvic floor. It also got held around my hips. And I was chronically tense. I had no idea that this was happening until I started to breathe and learn to relax these various parts of my body. And it wasn't like, oh, I relax this area, then some thought of like, oh, you lack faith rises. It's not necessarily so linear. Essentially, as I started to gain more faith, and how I gained faith was reflecting, is that every point in my life, and no matter how difficult things have gotten since I was a child up until this moment in life, I've always been taken care of. I've always had shelter, I've always had food. The only thing that was required is that I be conscious, that I always continue to work on my clarity, on my consciousness. And as I continue to work on my clarity and my consciousness, the universe simply provided. And also, I had to learn how to exercise my will. And how I was taught to exercise my will was through my intuition and my instincts. My intuition and my instincts make all my decisions at this point. And indeed, I am taken care of. And I think everyone has a different standard as to what being taken care of means. But in my particular case, I have food, I have water, I have shelter, I have wonderful people around me, I have clients, etc. So I'm blessed. So that being said, the tensions manifest in the body for many of us. And so for many of us, we become very, very tight, very, very shut down. And that's why as people progress in age, their bodies become progressively more rigid. In Kundalini Yoga, the statement is that your youth is not a number, it's not an age, it's the flexibility of your spinal cord, which entirely makes sense. Now, why the flexibility of the spinal cord? Well, the flexibility of the spinal cord, essentially your spinal cord in a lot of ways represents the center channel of your body. And so as you're working with the spine, and if you're doing breathing in conjunction with working with the spine, essentially what you're doing is you're liberating any tensions. So all that's required is that one be present, right? So that's the need of meditation. So you do things in order to release tension patterns. It could be movements like in Kundalini Yoga, we do a lot of these like spine flex motions or spine twist motions or whatever it is. And what ends up happening is that you do these things enough, they start to liberate the patterns. The subconscious says, okay, this individual is ready to receive what is being held back. And so it will liberate an emotion or a thought and things like that. But what's needed is that we don't hook back into the pattern, right? So for instance, if I hadn't figured out that I was going to be taken care of throughout my life path, perhaps I would have taken a different, made different choices, and I would have remained in fear. The problem with remaining in fear is that nothing changes. I simply feed energy back into the loop. That loop is very symbolic. The Ouroboros is a symbol, the dog chasing its tail, all these sort of loops. The mind, this is how it works. The mind, if you're anchored into some belief, some thought, or another way to say it is that where that aspect of your existence which lacks consciousness, where you are not present or you are not present to something, that's where the tensions will build. And the tensions are meant to be signals. They're meant to say, hey, wake up and look, observe, something's going on. So that being said, another way I would like to kind of reframe this is to change one's perception of the body. Is that from here all the way down to your pelvic floor, essentially we're a tube. And this tube is meant to accommodate air. And again, this tube, once again, corresponds to the spinal cord. So again, this idea that if you liberate motion in the spinal cord, you will remain young, which is true. So this tube is postural in nature. As you inhale, it wants to relax. So what prevents us from taking a deep breath? We prevent us from taking a deep breath. There's nothing else to blame. When you're tense and anxious, what does your body feel like? It feels tense and anxious, right? Like there's this tension, you can't take a deep breath. So for me anyway, I found that really annoying back in the day when I was functioning much more unconsciously, when I would come into work and I'd be really anxious and someone would say, oh, just take a deep breath. And I'd be like, F you, I can't. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I tend to have a lot of tension naturally, so for me, I really had to work on this. So how we're going to work with this tube is two things. All the muscles surrounding this tube, from the sinuses all the way down to your pelvic floor, again, are postural in nature. In muscles, well, essentially, one of the beliefs is that we have to stretch. It's not true. A muscle needs to move through a full range of motion. So yes, it needs to stretch, and yes, it needs to relax into its full range, but it also needs to contract fully. So it's not good enough just to relax something. You also have to learn to contract something as well. So one of the ways we can engage this tube is through what I mentioned earlier, which is segmented breathing. In segmented breathing, what I'm going to teach you in this video, we're just going to do segmented breathing 5 in, and we're going to do segmented breathing 5 out, right? So when we're doing the 5 in, it's done slow. So you inhale a little bit, you inhale a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, you get the point. Each segment has a pause. And so if you can think about you're inhaling from your pelvic floor up, you can divide the body into 5 segments. You have your pelvic segment, you've got your abdomen, your rib cage, your neck, throat, head and sinus, however you want to divide it up into 5 segments. Essentially, these are the segments which you can relax as you're doing the pauses. So you inhale a little bit, relax your pelvic floor, inhale a little more, relax your belly and your ribs, inhale a little more, relax the chest, inhale a little more, you relax the neck and throat, inhale a little more, you relax up inside the sinuses. I think you get the point, right? So, and when we exhale, we're also doing something very similar. Now the exhale you can kind of do in various ways. You could either exhale from bottom up or from top down. So I'm going to teach you top down just because it seems like it creates a nice orbit effect. So I'll teach you 5 segments down. So first we're going to do the inhaling 5 segments up, complete exhale out, and then we're going to do exhaling in 5 segments in one full inhale. It'll make sense when we get there. So let me go ahead and guide you into it first. The first thing we want to do though is we want to saturate with oxygen. The reason we want to saturate with oxygen is because it removes the anxiety around taking an inhale in, right? So it removes this anxious feeling of like, I have to breathe, right? So we're going to do some breath of fire or bellows breath. Again, either or. Breath of fire is done 2 fingers below the actual navel. I pull in the belt line, air goes out, I relax, air comes in. Now, bellows breath is diaphragmic. It's just in and out, in and out, in and out. The diaphragm is just moving. Bellows breath is easier. Breath of fire requires a muscular contraction. I prefer breath of fire because breath of fire pulls you into your core, into your center of gravity. So it shifts the center of gravity, which is a conditioned center of gravity up here, and it shifts it back down into your true center of gravity and your true center of mass. So that being said, you can do either or. We're just going to do a minute. So we're going to do, 45 seconds to a minute before we do each one of these segmented breaths. So let's go first off. You want to anchor downward. You want to push that perineum down. That is your ground root. So below the perineum, you can extend your awareness down through wherever you are and into the earth itself. You can try this. You can literally project your mind down from your perineum to below the body and continue further down inside the earth. And I found this to be very grounding in a way. So then after we kind of push that perineum down, bring the hands into a mudra. I'm just going to use Gyan Mudra, thumb and index finger touching. Align the crown with whatever light you perceive above the head. And when I say align the crown, I mean lifting the clavicle, tucking the chin. Inhale, deep breath. Exhale completely. Good. So hopefully you have nice alignment now. So let's go ahead. We're going to do some rapid breathing, breath of fire or bellows breath. Take a deep breath in. Exhale all the air out. Inhale half breath. And begin. Just a little bit more. Deep breath in. Retain it briefly. Exhale the air out. Once all the air is out, bring your awareness to your pelvic floor. We're going to begin inhaling in 5 segments up. So inhale a little bit. Relax your pelvic floor. Inhale a little more. Relax the abdomen, lower back. Inhale a little more. Relax the ribs, chest. Inhale a little more. Clavicle, throat. Inhale a little more. Relax the roof of the mouth, up inside the sinuses. There's 3 points, a forward point on the roof of the mouth, a middle point, and a point back towards the throat. Go ahead and exhale and 1 stroke out. Returning back down to your pelvic floor. Let's do another couple breaths. Inhale a little bit. Relax the pelvic floor, your hips. Inhale more. Abdomen, lower back. Inhale more. Ribs, up to around the chest. And more. Upper chest, clavicle, throat. Another 5th of breath in. Relax the roof of the mouth, front point, middle point, and the point of the soft palate all the way back towards the throat. Up, relax up inside the sinuses, perhaps roll your eyes up, and then exhale out in 1 stroke. All right, let's do 1 more breath. Inhale a little bit. Relax the pelvic floor, hips. Inhale a little more. Belly, lower back. More. Rib cage, lower portion of the chest, sternum. Inhale more. Relax the armpits, clavicle, throat. Inhale more. Relax the roof of the mouth, up inside the sinuses. Gently roll the eyes up. Exhale out in 1 stroke. Good. All right, so let's take a deep breath in. Exhale completely. All right, let me explain some things a little bit. So as you're doing this progression, what you might notice is because you're creating a pause, you're relaxing these things, you may also notice something in your awareness. For me, like I said, it's not necessarily the relaxing the various parts of the body where I'm generally kind of noticing things. So sometimes I'll inhale, and for me, I'll kind of get up to around the throat, up inside the sinuses, and I'll inhale that breath, and I notice something that feels off. It's like part of my awareness is here, part of it's down here, and it just feels crooked. And so that's what I meant to pay attention to, is that crookedness is going to be related to a physical tension. Now, you may perceive crookedness anywhere inside the body because the body has essentially 3 channels. You have a center channel, a right channel, and a left channel, and all these are intertwining. So in some areas, we may feel like our energy is off the one side of the body, where the other side of the body, it's imbalanced. So that's the part of the retaining the breath and then drawing your awareness into presence so that you can go deeper and deeper and deeper into feel into where that tension actually is being held. I'm just giving you generic guidelines, pelvic floor, hips, things like those are generic guidelines. All right, so let's go ahead and try doing it with exhaling in segments. So exhaling a little bit more. So the exhaling in segments is a little more difficult. So once again, we're going to do some quick rapid breathing to saturate with oxygen. So once again, plant that perineum downward. Pull up nice and tall, lift the clavicle, tuck the chin, and align yourself. Take a deep breath in. Exhale the air out. Inhale half breath. We'll begin breath of fire or bellows breath. Deep breath in. Exhale all the air out. Let's do another breath. Deep breath in. And we're going to begin exhaling in segments. So we're going to start with the head. And what you want to do as you exhale in one of these segments, you want to contract any of the musculature. So contracting the temples in the face from front to back, side to side. Exhale a little more. Contract from the sides of the throats, back of the neck, throat, whatever you can. Again, we're trying to squeeze the tube. Exhale a little more. Rib cage, chest. And exhale more. Squeezing in the abdomen. Exhale more. And pull Mula Bandha or root lock. Contract the anus, the perineum, the genitals. All the air is out now. Deep breath in. Exhale completely. Inhale again. Exhale completely. Let's do one more. Inhale, full breath. Exhale, contract all the space inside the head. Exhale more. Contract all the space in the throat. Contracting those muscles. Exhale more. Rib cage, chest. Exhale more. Abdomen. Exhale more. Root lock. Retain it out. Squeeze all that air out. Then relax everything. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Good. All right. So, again, the various things, you're going to notice various things on the exhales, exhaling in segments. It's obviously more difficult. Again, the thing that we want to do is we want to contract everything through a full range of motion. And this will, again, start to liberate things. But once again, as I mentioned before, you may feel incongruencies in your being. So you can always, when you go, I highly suggest you go into meditation after doing these kinds of practices. Again, just what I mean by meditation, it's awareness. If you notice something rise in your awareness, like, oh, I feel a tension in this place or that place, and you also notice something about your consciousness that seems to be connected to it, you inhale into it. Usually what I'll do is I'll retain the breath. Like, I always feel a tension on the neck, so I'll inhale into the neck, and I'll contract the muscles on the neck. Exhale, and again, it's like I'm releasing the tension. As I exhale, I squeeze, continue contracting, inhaling and relaxing. Exhale, squeeze and contract. That's just my neck. But again, you can do this to any part of your body. So hopefully this video is informative, and I appreciate you watching. Thank you all.